And welcome back to our simple tank tutorial here. What we're going to be doing this time is looking at the concept of a global variable. One of the things we want to add to our game is some kind of a score system. Now I know most games these days don't really use scores, but to learn with, it's pretty easy to make older style arcade games. So that's why we're going to put a score in. In the create event, I'm going to initialize a variable and I'm going to call it player score. Now this is not a, make it 0. This is not a global variable. Okay, we're going to make it global in a minute, but I want to demonstrate why or how we can make this global and why we might want to. So first of all, we're going to go into our draw GUI and we're going to draw some text on the screen as well. If you remember from the last video, the text that we drew was at this far back from the room. So I'm just going to copy that, and 45, we'll draw the next one at 65. So X location is that way. So if we're thinking of the room, it's the room width, that number. Now if I change the room, it's still going to be in the same position up in that top right hand corner. I'll demonstrate that shortly. But it's minus 280 pixels. Okay, so it comes down to here. So whatever that number is, 1280, 1024 in the case of what it's set to now, it's going to subtract 200 pixels from that. So it'll be 824 and put it at that X value. So just refreshing us on that. The Y value, I'm going to make it 65. And this I'm just hard coding in, and the text is going to say score. So if you look at these ones, that was at 45 down. This one was at 23 down, but that's because I made a few little changes to that. So we could see the difference between these. This is at 23. That's at 45. So if we add another 18 to that, we will get, sorry, not 18. We'll go 67. That should be the same gap between them all. And then we're going to draw a variable again. So that's this one, which is under extra. No, it's not. It's under control. And it's draw variable. The variable that we're going to draw is going to be the player score. And actually, this is the place we're going to draw this at. So I've made a little bit of a mistake. Oh, no, this is going to be minus 200. Minus 200, and the Y value is going to be 67. Okay, now I'll just check to make sure. Yep, minus 200. That was minus 201. That's for that bigger rectangle, though. Okay, so I should be able to go into my game now. And it should say score 0 up there. Okay, so that's working fine. Just to demonstrate this, if I go and make the room bigger, okay, say if I make the room 1920 by 1080, which is full screen for me at the moment, it'll be a little bit larger, but you can push Alt-Enter to go to full screen in Game Maker. Okay, so you see up in that corner, it's in the same location in that corner. Okay, it hasn't changed. It hasn't started out in the middle here. It's always up in that corner because I've used that derived value of room width minus a number. Rather than try to figure it out from this side and figure out how far across it goes, I'll just take it from this side and go backwards. Alt-Enter will make it not full screen again. And I'm going to change that room size back because it's too big for me to work with. 1024 by 768. And now what I want to do on my object enemy tank, when it gets destroyed, I'm going to increase the score. Now it's important that you don't use, there is a variable called score. This is a built-in global variable. I don't recommend using it, mainly because it's not good practice. So especially for understanding level 1 digital technology in New Zealand, you should be declaring global variables rather than just assuming that they are. So let's have a look here. If I go player underscore score plus equals 50, so every time a tank is destroyed, we get 50 points. I click the tick. What's going to happen is I'm going to get an error. I'm going to get an error as soon as this code or destroys a tank. There we go. Error popped up. Now these errors are not the most easy to read in Game Maker. It does say where it is, so that's quite useful. It says it's a fatal error. Fatal error means that the program has crashed. it's caused it to stop running. In action number 4 of the destroy event for object enemy tank. And it kind of, I can understand what this is. It's saying here, variable object enemy tank dot player score not set before reading it. So what that's saying, if I go back into here, it's saying it doesn't know what this is. And I'll just put a little code comment here, increase player score. So it doesn't know what player score is because player score is local to the tank player. Okay, so the only object that currently knows what player score is that tank player. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into here and we are going to create a global variable for this. And the way we do it is by typing global in front of the variable name. Now, this is one of those situations, and it's the only one that I'm aware of in GameMaker. There we go, global var. It's the only one that I'm aware of in GameMaker where you need to put an end line statement on the end of it. So that's why I have been for all of these variables. But for this one, you definitely need to. It will not run without it. Okay, it doesn't understand it. So if you're getting that error, put that semicolon on the end. Now you can't initialize the value of a global variable when you declare it. So I can't go equals 0. I have to do it on the next line. So I've declared the global variable, global var, player underscore score, and player score is now equal to 0. Over here, this will now refer to that global variable that I've declared in here. Every single object in the game can access the player score now, for better or worse. But every single object in the game can now access and modify that player score variable. So I go back into here, run the game, and score goes up to 50, then it will go up to 100, and we won't see it go up to 150 because the game will restart. But now I've got that global variable. So there's a big difference between these two, and it's important to make the distinction of when you need to use when you need to use a global variable and when you need to use a local. Because nothing else is going to be affected by move speed or turn speed, then I'm going to keep them local to this. Because I can determine the MO on the player, then I'm going to keep player MO local to this. I don't need a global variable for that. Okay, nothing else external to the player is going to modify this. Pickups, for example, I can make an event on the player. For when he picks up ammo, I can just increase the ammo on the player. Same with player health. Okay, when I collide with an enemy tank, I can reduce the player health. But the player score, this player here, it's really difficult for me to check whether the bullet here collides with the enemy tank. And so rather than write really confusing script on here in the step event that's going to check every single bullet to see if it's colliding with every single tank, I can just do that in here. When it gets destroyed, increase the player score. Okay, and because I've made it global, then that other object can see this. I could have also done this object player object tank player dot player score. Now it's the player score variable that belongs to the object player, and that would work without being global. But you do need to know the difference between global and local. So things like this, player score, I mean, you could have player lives as a global variable as well. You could have player health as a global variable. Say you had some kind of controller object, which we're going to do in a moment. We're going to have a controller object that creates random objects. Not random objects, tanks at random locations around or just outside the room. So let's have a look at that in the next video.